Over the last couple of weeks we've been building this machine, the Olivetti M280. It's a 286 12 megahertz with now 3 megabytes of RAM, and that's thanks to the AST Rampage memory expansion that we added last week. There is one more upgrade though that I want to do to this machine. One more card to put in there, and that's going to be a sound card. At the minute we're just relying on the PC speaker. And while there is something very nostalgic about the sound of that PC speaker, let's be honest, it's not that great, is it? At the time, 86, 87, around the time of this machine, the go-to option would have been the Adlib card. So that's what we're going to put in here today. But those original Adlibs, well, they are getting kind of expensive. So rather than trying to find one of those, I went and picked up this DIY kit. This is a new clone of the Adlib by AAPro, 8-bit ISA sound card designed by retro lovers. So let's try and put this together, and then we'll test it out and see what it sounds like. So I picked this up from eBay. It cost me $27.99. And while I said it's a new Adlib clone, from what I can tell, it has been kicking about since 2019. So it's been around for 3 years. And I have to admit, I have seen it listed on eBay off and on throughout the last while, but they were finally back in stock. They do seem to sell out rather quickly. And I thought, let's get one for the Olivetti. What's in the box? On list of items all ticked off, so hopefully it's complete. Bag of goodies and some instructions. So that's the card we're going to build. Tools needed, gloves, I think we'll be okay. Soldering iron, solder, 2 pairs of pliers apparently, and a screwdriver. One recommended order of assembly, so we will run through that. And this is just the basic version of the Adlib compatible 8-bit ISA sound card for retro computers that I bought. There is a Pro version available, or well, should I say, you can buy some additional components from them to turn this into the Pro version. But for today, we're just assembling the basic version. So what's in the bag? Well, there is the card plus its bracket. Not a lot to put on it, plus it's all through hole, so should be relatively straightforward to put together. There's all the components, including the chips, and they've added one socket there, which presumably is for that component, that part. That's the programmable GAL. And hopefully it is already programmed. I'm sure it will be, considering this is just a DIY kit that only needs soldering. I think what we will do though is add sockets to the rest of these ICs. Certainly for the OPL2, the YM3812. I found sockets that will do all the other ICs as well, so we'll just stick those in while we're at it. The first thing it wants us to do is install the decoupling capacitors C3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 on the bottom of the board. And look at that. All the components on the top side, they've labelled them, so U1, U4, C2. But on the bottom side, they didn't bother. Just has the capacitance written there, 100N, so 100 nanofarad presumably. But why didn't they bother putting on the reference of the component like they did on the top side? Oh well, doesn't really matter. I'm using the fume extractor here that I built a long time ago, so apologies if there is a bit of fan noise. So it is these little capacitors that we need to fit. There's the first one ready to go. It'll be interesting to see just how this goes. Anytime I've tried soldering on these white PCBs before, it always seems to give me problems. I'm going to use a little bit of flux, and I know it might be easier if we cut the legs down to size first, but let's just see how this goes. Yeah, that doesn't look too bad. I forgot to get the pliers out.
5 minutes later.
Where are my snips?
1 eternity later.
Found them. They're always in the last place you look, aren't they? One down, 5 more to go. Let's try cutting this one down to size first. People say this makes it easier. Let's find out. Yeah, maybe it actually does. Although, perhaps I left a bit too much of them protruding through. That's a bit better. Okay, that's them on. Next up is the resistors. 10 ohm resistor goes to position R1. And then these 5 go to positions R2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Right, the next thing it recommends to put on then is the socket. Okay, let's do that. So to orientate this socket, you can see a little notch here on the silk screen, and equally there's a notch on the socket itself, so that goes on like that. It is quite a tight fit there, but just to make sure it doesn't move when we're soldering it, I'm going to put a little bit of blue tack at either end. That will just help hold it flush to the board. Despite that though, we will just do opposite ends first. And then we can check to make sure that it definitely is sitting flat, and it is. Blue tack can come off now. And it's just a matter of doing all the rest. In fact, you know what? Big bit of blue tack will stop the board moving while I'm trying to solder it. Okay, that's that one on. But since we're doing sockets, I may as well fit all those ones as well. The next thing they want us to do is to fit the jumper wires at position L1 through L8. Now, I think if you buy the Pro kit that has additional components in it, all those jumper wires come out and are replaced with additional components. The likes of L1, L4 and L6 there. You'd almost think capacitors go in those locations, and there is something written there, but it's so small I can't read it. They give you this copper wire to use for the jumpers, but you could also just use the legs of those components that you've already cut off. But since they've given us this, this is what I'm going to use. So that's going to go in there. Getting this bent to the right size is going to be tricky enough. I think that's about right. Holding this in position though, well, we could put a bit of blue tack over it, although that is going to melt and make everything all sticky when we apply heat to it, but I don't really see any other option, to be honest. Yeah, bits of melted blue tack all over the place. Although we can maybe use the blue tack itself to try and get that off. That's tidied up, not too bad. So I need to put the rest of the jumpers on. We then have the capacitors to fit, the jack, and this capacitor as well. So I'm just going to do all of that. Don't want to bore you with any more soldering. I'll do all of that, then we can test this. I was just about to fit the audio jack, but there's a problem. You can maybe see on the bottom of this, there's little bits of plastic sticking up there on either side. There's one at the back as well. And those are designed to go into holes on the PCB to give some strength, but there's no such holes on the PCB here. Now, you still can line up the legs, and there's just about enough of them comes through. If you were to solder it up, you know, it would probably be okay. But if I hold that in position and offer up this, you can see that it doesn't really line up. So it is intended here for this to go down flush. I'm going to have to cut those little plastic tabs off. That just allows that to sit flat against the board. There's a good bit more of the leg coming through, so we will be able to get a better soldered joint as well. And if I offer that up now, everything lines up properly. Okay, we are almost ready to go. All the components have been fitted. I just need to put the bracket on and populate the sockets. But another problem. The edge connector. And I'm sorry I'm just noticing this now, because it would have been a lot easier to solve this problem before putting any of the components on. But if you look down the line of that, well, that is a square edge. Now, if I take an old network card, and if you look down the line of that, I'm not sure if you'll be able to make it out or not, but the edge connector is chamfered. And the whole point of that is so that when the card goes into the slot, well, the contacts on the slot, you know, the chamfer on the edge of this spreads them, allows the card to go in without causing any potential damage. Pushing in a square edge card such as this, while the risk is very low, there is a chance that you could damage the slot or you could damage the card. I dare say it's unlikely on the first insertion, but once it's been in and out a few times, well, there is a chance that those pins there could be ripped off or certainly damaged anyway. So we're going to have to try and put a chamfer on this. So I'm going to try and grab this in the vise. As I said, it would have been a lot easier to do this before putting the components on, because I could have grabbed it up closer to the edge connector, but whatever. And just using the file, we're going to have to try and take a bit off that straight edge. So hopefully you can make out now that I have chamfered that ever so slightly. It has exposed a little bit of the copper at the end of those pins there, but that should be okay. What I might do actually is get the iron turned on again, and just with a bit of wick, just go over that. Those are solder coated contacts anyway. So yeah, I think we'll just drag a bit of wick over that with a bit of solder on it, and that'll just seal any of the exposed copper again. I really should have put the fume extractor back on too. So you know we're going to have to give the OPL chip the acetone test. Is it genuine? Is it refinished? What is it? It's a refinished chip. Well, that's all the refinished paint off it. You can still read Yamaha Japan YM3812, but there's no other manufacturer mark coming through, so there's nothing to suggest that it's not a real part that has just been refinished. You just do have to question, why do these sellers of these things even bother refinishing it in the first place? Yeah, it makes the chip more pretty looking, I suppose, but I don't think any of us retro collectors would really care. All we want is the genuine part. So last piece of the puzzle. Paying attention to the dot in the corner of the chip, that's pin 1 up there, and pin 1 is up this corner, denoted by the notch in the socket. Let's see if it works. I certainly hope it does, because I'm pretty sure I have voided the warranty by this point. I'm going to put it into this slot, just because this is the only other one on the back of the system that doesn't have one of the original covers on it. You can maybe see the cover there through that hole. Not going to bother putting the screw in just yet. Right, let's see, or well, more accurately, let's hear if it works. That was a good sign, perhaps. When we turned on the PC, you got a pop out of the speakers. That would suggest the amplification circuit on the sound card is at least working. So let's go into the games folder. I'm heading for Monkey Island. We're running this with switches E for EGA graphics and A for Adlib sounds. Oh yes, it's working! Outstanding. I'm going to switch you over to a direct capture of the audio and just let you listen to this for a minute or so. Well, it sounds like Monkey Island to me. We've also got Commander Keen on here, and it confirms that it detects the Sound Blaster or Adlib sound card. Oh dear, things go a bit slow there as it loads the level. And you can see that graphical glitching as it's trying to scroll as well. Not sure if that's being caused by an incompatibility with the graphics adapter, or perhaps this little system just can't keep up to the scrolling. So our little sound card is working well. Let's just check that edge connector, and it looks fine. Yeah, no damage on it. It's grand. But here's a thought. What about the Pro version of this, as these AAPro guys call it? How about we buy the other components of them, stick it on there, and see if we can hear any difference. The components have arrived. Only took 2 days to get here after ordering, and that's me ordering fairly late on Sunday night, and they arrived Tuesday morning, so really cannot complain about their delivery service. As I thought, most of these parts are replacing the jumpers that we put in previously. So positions L1 through L8, we need to take all those links back out again. There's also 3 additional capacitors to fit. There was nothing in those holes originally. But replacing the jumpers, well, it's ferrite beads and chokes. I had thought in those positions it might be capacitors, but no, those are the chokes. All the other positions are getting replaced with ferrite beads. So really all they're doing here is trying to filter out any noise on the power supply coming into this. Alright, that's my assumption anyway. I suppose we can check it. The power comes in on the back side of the board. And if I pull up the ISA pinout, third pin along is 5 volts. So that one. Yep. That's where one of those chokes would go. There's another one there. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9th pin along connects to that one, and that is plus 12 volts. That's the final position for one there. And the 7th pin along, continuity there, that is minus 12. So those 3 chokes that we need to fit are going to be filtering high frequency noise out of minus 12, plus 12, and plus 5. Need to get all of those out. Okay, that's all the jumper wires out. Let's get the new stuff fitted. Well, if anything, it certainly looks more professional. An awful lot more components on there. Still one blank space here at C14. When you buy the Pro kit in the leaflet that comes with it, well, it tells you that that is optional. Personally, I would have liked that to have been included, and then I would have had the option whether to fit it or not. But it is what it is. That's it built. So let's see if it sounds any different. And hopefully that's the last time we'll need to take the card out. So let's just put the screw in. Right, let's see if it sounds any different. Let's see if it still works. Because you never know with me and soldering. Yep, still making noises, so at least we didn't break it. And it still sounds really good. But to put it to the test, this Pro version, I think what I'll do is record the full intro again and just switch between them in the video. And then you can tell me if it sounds any better. Well, honestly, I can't hear any difference, although it is pretty hard to tell over the noise of this system. And I suppose maybe you wouldn't hear any difference, would you? Really? Maybe the difference you're going to hear is more when the card is silent. Well, let's put that to the test, shall we? Let's listen to the card for, say, 10 seconds either way, before and after fitting the Pro components. I'll turn the gain way up, and let's listen out for any interference. So yeah, it did cut out quite a bit of that noise, but granted, I had that gain turned way up there. So in reality, are you really going to hear it? I'm not so sure. Almost a bit like Duke Nukem, this game. It's really good. Right, I think that's enough to give you an idea of what the music's like anyway. If I don't stop playing it, I'm going to be here for hours. Well, I think that is us done with the Adlib card. It's built, it's working, it's in the system. We even fitted the Pro upgrade. And to be honest with you, I also think that is us done with the Olivetti M280. Yes, it does still need its power supply recapped. There's a whole story about those capacitors that still haven't arrived. I'm not going to bore you with it now. But suffice to say, replacement ones are in the post. So when they come, I will do that. Although I'm not sure it needs another video. As for the wee Adlib card itself, well, I am really pleased with it. And despite the fact that I did give it a bit of a hard time while putting it together, looking back to that, I suppose in reality, all those things that I pointed out are pretty minor. The only thing would be that edge connector, you know, with the square edge on it. I really would prefer the chamfered edge. Although that said, if you're just building the card, sticking it in the machine and forgetting about it, well, it probably would be fine. So with that in mind, would I recommend our little Adlib clone for $27.99? Yeah, probably would. I am really impressed with it, and considering the price of all other sound cards, including the original Adlib, the price of all that is going through the roof. So this wee card for under £30, I think it is hard to beat. Now those additional components, that's a further $7.99, and I'll leave it for you to decide if fitting them is worth it. It did make it a bit quieter, although I had turned that gain way up. And in reality, are you going to notice it while the card is playing music? I'm not so sure I would. Although I know there are plenty of people out there that say they will. Not something that I notice, but look, I'll leave it up to you. So that is it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed what you've seen, and if you did, I would appreciate a big thumbs up. Why not hit subscribe if you haven't done so already? Still plenty more yet to come here on CRG, and I'll see you next time.